Dear friends, the plant diseases, particularly the diseases of the crop plants and of the pathogens, is a topic of discussion since many years. So it's understood that the ancient interaction between disease and the future crops caused a never-ending cycle of adaptation, detection, and competition. As diseases are caused to humans and animals, the same pathogens cause disease in plants such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, humicities, parasitic plants, etc. So what happened? Early farmers they competed against pathogen damage to their crops by using some of the supernatural or superstitious practices. However, it was only after the onset of modern plant pathology detection of a plant disease based on a scientific approach, the discipline was founded in 1767 by Giovanni Targioni Tosetti. So he investigated the cause of famine in central Italy and discovered Puccinia graminis, agent of the rust of a wheat. Then he introduced the term epidemiology. So what is this epidemiology and what are the various causes of epidemics? What are the different types of disease triangle and what are those elements of an epidemics and various factors affecting the development of the epidemics, and also why to detect and how to analyze the plant diseases and what is exactly phytopathometry, and also in brief we'll be studying about various conventional and modern techniques used in assessing the plant disease epidemiology. Dear friends, Dr. Kavita Sagar welcomes you for today's presentation about plant disease epidemiology. When a disease is being discussed, whether it may be a human disease, animal disease, or a plant disease, basically there are two terms of diseases: epidemic disease and endemic disease. So this epidemic disease is an unarrested, it cannot be controlled, it is widespread, which increases increase of the infectious disease usually limited in the time. An epidemic, it also may extend over a single season, or it may drag to many years, or over a wide or relatively small area. On the other hand, the endemic disease is one that is permanently established in a moderate or severe form within a defined area, and also usually becomes indigenous following initial introduction of the pathogen. Epidemiology is a study of factors affecting the outbreak and spread of infectious disease, and the epidemic rate is the increase or decrease per unit or time in a given plant population. Plant disease epidemiology, in short PDE. It is a science of studying plant diseases in a particular plant population, and usually PDE involves integrated strategy via incorporation of agronomical, biological and ecological and statistical tools. So these are few examples of epidemics in the past. There was a Irish potato famine reported in 1845 to 1846, which was caused by Phytophthora and also late blight of epidemic of potato. And again there is another example, the Bengal famine, which was reported in 1943, caused by Cochleobolus, that is Helminthosporum brown spot epidemic of rice. These are two basic examples when we talk about the epidemics of the past, that is brown spot epidemic of rice and late blight of potato. Yeah, there are several questions in one individual's mind during the outbreak of diseases. When one particular crop is severely affected by the pathogen or the disease, there arose these following questions. What will happen over the next few weeks to the crops? Will all the plants die, leaving nothing to harvest, or will only currently infected plants will yield less? Are all the plants infected and only few showing symptoms? Is the pathogen air, water, wind or vector dispersed? Can this crop be planted next season, etc.? All these questions are answered in plant disease epidemiology. And the elements of an epidemic are, in fungal and bacterial diseases, the host, pathogen, environment and human activities are basic elements of the epidemics. And in virus and virus-like diseases, the elements of the epidemic are the virus, the host, the vector and the environment. Depending upon the virulence of pathogen strains and cultivation plants, there are various PDEs categorized, like monocyclic PDE, polycyclic PDE, bimodial polycyclic PDEs and polyatic PDEs. So in monocyclic PDEs, there is a lack of secondary inoculum and secondary infections during the same year. That is, slowly reproducing pathogens have one infection cycle in a single year that can result in monocyclic PDE. For example, Physaean wilt of flex caused by the Fusarium oxysporum, it infects the flex plant only once in a year. So on the contrary, this polycyclic PDEs, here the pathogens embedding the multiple infection cycles in a single season lead towards the polycyclic. In one single season, the pathogens, they affect continuously, often and often, to the same particular plant. For example, airborne popular fungal disease, that is powdery mildew, is frequently seen in the crop plants in one single season. Bimodial polycyclic is categorized with multiple infections of single plant at different time. At different time, there are seen to that particular plant, there are multiple infections. For example, stone fruits and blossoms are infected by brown rot diseases of stone fruits and blossoms. This brown rot disease is caused to stone fruits and blossoms. When coming to polyatic PDEs, sometimes for determining the type of PDE, it is important to overlook the pattern of the crops being grown at that particular place for several years. For example, if a single crop is being grown every year in that vicinity again and again, this leads towards the accumulation of pathogen strains and building up of the inoculums for a particular diseases. So that means growing a single crop often and often in given that vicinity leads towards the accumulation of the pathogen strains and building up of the inoculums for a particular diseases. And this polyatic PDEs is referred as and this type of PDE is referred as polyatic PDE, and this may be caused via both monocyclic and polycyclic pathogens. For example, for this polyatic PDEs is powdery mildew of apple epidemics caused by polycyclic pathogen, that is Podospira leukotricha, and Dutch elm disease epidemics prevailed due to monocyclic Ophiostoma novulmii. So these are various types of the PDE. This is a diagrammatic representation of polycyclic, and here you can see in one season only primary inoculum and primary infection is seen in monocyclic plant diseases. On contrary, there are several repeated cycles of the infection in the crop plant seen in polycyclic plant diseases. For any disease to develop, there are three common elements: host, pathogen and environment. These embed to cause the disease development. So exclusively for plant disease epidemiology, the triangle completes when the host is susceptible, pathogen is virulent, and environment is favorable for infection establishment. Another important thing that can play its role in all the process is time. The pathogen can be managed by application of chemical cultural methods or other practices, and also environmental conditions are natural and cannot be manipulated via physical effects by the human beings. But the fourth factor, that is time, allows us quickly manage the pathogen before occurrence of favorable pathogenic environmental conditions, and this time is very crucial as it is variable for every pathogen regarding infection establishment. So these are various aspects of plant disease triangle, where in this first triangle you can see there is absence of susceptible host, there is absence of virulent pathogen, and there is also absence of conducive elements. All the three factors responsible for the development of the diseases is absent, hence no development of disease. So in second triangle you can see that there is a presence of susceptible host, presence of conducive environment is there, but absence of virulent pathogen, hence no disease development. And in this third triangle also you can see there is a presence of conducive environment and there is a presence of virulent pathogen, but there is absence of susceptible host, hence here also no disease can be developed. And in this triangle you can see only favorable condition is prevailing, but other two factors, that is susceptible host and virulent pathogen, are absent, hence here also no disease will occur. In the last triangle you can see there is the presence of all the three factors, susceptible host is there, virulent pathogen is there, and conducive environment is there, hence disease can be developed. So these conditions can lead to the plant disease epidemiology. So as I told, the three factors, that is elements, that is pathogen, environment and host, develop. So pathogen, there should be a presence of pathogen, it should exhibit pathogenicity, that is virulence and aggressiveness, and it should have the potential of adapting to adverse conditions, and it should exhibit disposability and survival efficiency and also reproductive fitness. When coming to the environment, several factors, elements like temperature, rainfall, dew, wetness of leaf wetness period, temperature of the soil, soil water content and fertility of the soil, and also organic matter content of the soil, wind, fire history, air pollution, herbicide damages, these are also encounter the environment factors. And host should be susceptible, and growth stage and form of the host is also responsible for the development of the disease, and population density and structure and general health of host is also important for the disease to develop. Yeah, now coming to various factors affecting the development of epidemics. There are three major factors as we discussed in the disease triangle, that is pathogen, host and environment. So pathogen factors, host factors and environment factors. So let us study one by one. So now let's start with pathogen factors. So the introduction of the pathogen Phytophthora cinnamomyi into certain forests has results in the outbreak of the diseases in several countries long back, as per the reports. And similarly, the appearance of new pathotypes of Puccinia gramineae with virulence on cultivars of wheat that are resistant to the local pathotypes can also result in the fresh outbreaks of the wheat stem rust. Yeah, pathogenicity is the term comprises both the virulence of the pathogen and aggressiveness of the pathogen. So what is virulence of the pathogen? Virulence is the ability of the pathogen to infect cultivars which have certain resistant genes, and aggressiveness of a pathogen is the vigor with which it infects cultivars without resistant genes or cultivars whose resistant genes are not activated by the pathogen. These two terms, virulence and aggressiveness, comprise the pathogenicity, and the amount of disease that develops is often determined by the pathogenicity of the prevalent population of the pathogen. And this pathogenicity is one aspect of the reproductive fitness of a pathogen, which also includes aspects of dispersal and survival fitness. And also control of disease often involves monitoring the pathogenicity of the prevailing pathogen population as a guide to the breeding of the resistant host cultivars. Yeah, followed by pathogenicity. Adaptability is another factor which is important in determining its ability to overcome resistance in newly released cultivars or to adapt to changed environmental conditions. For example, if that pathogen affects the crop which is grown only in wetland, or the pathogens affects only the plants which are grown in dry regions, and if such crops are planted vice versa, that is wetland crops are planted in drier areas, or drier areas plants are planted in wetland wetland areas. So in such conditions also, the pathogen should have the capacity, adaptability to the changed environmental conditions. So that is the introduction of irrigation or planting of a crop only in drier plants, parts of its potential range. Example, Puccinia graminis has high reproductive efficiency, and in spite of the absence of sexual reproductive cycle, it has been reported from Australia that this Puccinia graminis has the potential to develop new pathotypes by asexual means, such as it undergoes mutation in order to adapt to the environmental conditions, and also it exhibits heterokaryosis and parasexualism in order to adapt to the changed environmental conditions, or in order to overcome the resistance in the newly released varieties. Dispersibility is another character which the pathogen should exhibit in order to effectively establish the disease. So dispersibility is nothing but the ability of a pathogen to cause destructive disease epidemics depends on its ability to disperse rapidly over a long distances. So herein lies much of the destructive potential of a cereal rust. So the cereal rusts are effectively destructed by the ability of the dispersibility of a pathogen. The uridianospores of rusts can be blown vast distances in few days, allowing epidemics to develop rapidly over very large areas. And also nematodes and soil-borne pathogens, on the other hand, have limited dispersal ability and tend to cause localized disease outbreaks. The pathogen should also exhibit the ability to survive. It should have the ability to survive in extreme conditions. So this ability to survive is important for soil-borne pathogens, and some smut fungi and Plasmodiophora brassicae, the cause of club root of crucifers, these form spores that enable the pathogens to survive in the soil for many years. That is, the spores of smut fungi and Plasmodiophora brassicae. So the spores of these two pathogens, they survive in the soil for many years, thus reducing the effectiveness of disease control using crop rotation. And also the Sclerotium rollsfii and Sclerotiana species are also particularly effective in enabling these pathogens to survive for long periods in soil. And survival of cereal rusts between growing seasons in a critical factor in determining the likelihood of the epidemics. And the wet summer allows the growth of volunteer cereal plants on which the rust can survive through summer and autumn. The wet summer, that is a period between end of the summer and beginning of the rainy season. This wet summer allows the growth of volunteer cereal plants on which the rust can survive through the summer and autumn, and that results in a larger quantities of inoculum to initiate epidemics in the new growing season. So all these four factors, that is pathogenicity, adaptability, dispersal ability, and survival efficiency, contribute to a fundamental property of a pathogen that determines the amount of disease, namely the number of infective propagules, that is number of fungal spores or a sclerotia, bacterial cells, nematode eggs, and individual nematodes and virus carrying insects which are available to infect the plants. So overall, pathogenicity, adaptability, dispersal and survival efficiency contribute to the determination of amount of disease, namely the number of infective propagules, that is the number of fungal spores, number of sclerotia, or the number of bacterial cells, number of nematode eggs or individual nematodes, or even the virus carrying number of virus carrying insects. So all these factors which are all these factors are available to infect the plants. So all these factors can be determined by this pathogenicity, adaptability, dispersal and survival efficiency of a pathogen. This contribute to the determination of number of infective propagules which are available for to infect the plants. And the most common relationship between the number of propagules and disease incidence is a straight line which levels off at high disease incidence. And as the number of propagules increases, the amount of disease increases, but it increases more slowly as the number of uninfected plants or the amount of uninfected tissue decreases at higher levels of diseases. Second important factor determining the epidemics is host factors. So it is susceptibility of a host. So for any disease epidemic to occur, the host plant population must be largely susceptible to attack by the pathotypes of the pathogen in its vicinity. The growth stage and the form of the host greatly influence the occurrence of disease, and some diseases such as damping off are more common in small seedlings while others are characteristic of the mature plants. So hence growth stage and form of the host are important in the occurrence of the role of plants in affecting the development of epidemics depends upon the genetic resistance or the susceptibility of the host, or degree of genetic uniformity of host in a particular field. That may be monoculture, especially in cases of clones, and it also depends upon the natural or intermingled populations and what type of crops are affected in which season, which week, etc. So for example, annual crops or foliar or fruit diseases develop much more rapidly. It may be within weeks also, and these woody plants like trees, perennial woody diseases, they take longer time to develop. That is, it may take 1 to 2 years also. And age of the host plants also determine the development of the epidemics. Some plants are susceptible only during the growth period and some become resistant during the mature period. Even if a host is susceptible to a pathogen, the characteristic of a population structure and density in the host community will have a large bearing on the development of the disease community. Okay, so even if the host is susceptible to a pathogen, but population structure and density matters will decide whether it will allow the disease to develop or no. So many plant diseases are much more common in dense than in sparse plantings, and also pathogens usually become more prevalent in larger crowded host populations, and the prior health of the host is often important in determining occurrence of diseases. And these necrotrophic pathogens, these are often more damaging on poorly growing than on vigorous hosts, while the opposite is the case of biotrophs. And in cases of older overmature trees, these are more prone to attack by certain leaf pathogens, mistletoes and heart rots, although the degeneration of tree is also caused by the accumulated effect of all these pathogens. Third factor of epidemics is environmental factors. These environmental factors may include a pathogen from or greatly reduce its fitness on a particular part of a potential range of crops. So basically, there are two types of environmental factors: aerial environment and soil or edaphic environment. This aerial and soil environment is environment is the most important environmental factors, including disease outbreaks caused by fungi and bacteria. It is important for the nematodes also. The influence of rain, splash and running water on the dispersal of pathogen propagules is also important for the establishment of the disease to the plant. So most airborne pathogens such as rusts and late blight of potato require a period of free water on the leaf surface for spore germination and infection. The germination and infection process takes time, and it is therefore not surprising that the duration of leaf wetness has an important influence on infection. The spores of certain pathogens, that is spores of wheat strip rust, that is the spores of Puccinia striiformis, this may not establish effective contact with the leaf that is too wet. So this fails its establishment on the too wet leaf, and some of the germination and infection processes of the some of the pathogens that takes lot of time, and is therefore not surprising that the duration of the leaf wetness has an important influence on the infection. And in general, germination and infection of powdery mildews is favored by more high humidity than by the leaf wetness. Where there is high humidity, the germination and infection of powdery mildews is more when compared to the leaf wetness. So while talking about the edaphic environment, that is soil environment, the soil-borne diseases are affected mainly by environmental conditions in the soil. So that is some pathogens such as Pythiaceous fungi causing damping off and eucalypt dieback. They require a period of soil saturation to allow germination of survival propagules and infection of roots. When the these pathogens like the fungi, Pythiaceous fungi, which causes damping off and eucalyptic dieback, they require a period of soil saturation. They will wait for the period of soil saturation, and this soil saturation will allow the germination of survival of propagules and finally leading to the infection of the roots. When in cases of nematodes require adequate soil water. Much water should be there, water content should be there for their movement, for their motility. And the soil fertility can affect both soil and airborne diseases. There are some of the facultative pathogens which cause more disease when plants are growing poorly under conditions of nutrient deficiency than when they are growing vigorously. So nutrient deficiency weakens the plant resistance. On the other hand, biotrophic pathogens such as rusts and powdery mildews, these are often more common on vigorous, well-fertilized plants than on poorly growing plants. And also the organic matter content of the soil has an important influence on some soil-borne pathogens. So under environment factors, say various elements like moisture, temperature, all time and human beings also play an important role in for successful establishment of the disease. Moisture, it may be rain, dew, humidity or dominant factor in disease caused by oomycetes, fungi, bacteria and nematodes. And also temperatures affects the disease cycle of the pathogens. And disease development is also affected by time factors, that is season of the year, duration and frequency of favorable temperature and rains, and also appearance of factors and many more things. And human beings also affect the development of the epidemics. How? That is, it depends on the individual which site he selects and how he prepares. Selection of propagative material also, that is, he should select always the disease free and resistant propagative material. And introduction of exotic pathogens is being seriously observed by the human being, and various cultural practices practiced by the human being in plant disease management. These also play a major role in contribution by the human beings in development of the epidemics. And also the man using various disease control measures. He also while using these various control measures, that is by using pesticides, insecticides, fungicides, herbicides, these also mark an effect on the plant and also soil fertility, and directly he is responsible for the effect of development of the epidemics, and also introduction of new pathogens or the disease. The new pathogens or disease are being knowingly or accidentally introduced by the human beings, and hence in this way humans are responsible to affect the development of epidemics. Why to detect the plant diseases and how to analyze the detected plant diseases? Yeah, it is required. This plant disease detection is required where crop loss must be related to the diseases, and it is required for the plant disease service in plant breeding to assess host susceptibility, to make cost-effective disease management decisions in crop production, and also to better understand many basic biological processes, that for example coevolution. Coevolution, that is coevolution of plants and pathogens. To understand this also, this analysis or the detection of the plant disease is required, and also it is required for aiding in the settlement of crop insurance claims and various aspects of crop biosecurity, that is biocrimes. Phytopathometry is a science of quantifying plant diseases. So it was for the first time Cobb developed a series of diagrams to aid assessing the severity of wheat rust, and more popularly the Cobb scale is used and referred by most of the plant pathologists in order to detect and analyze the plant diseases. So these are modern tools for analysis of plant disease, that is molecular tools such as polymerase chain reaction and ELISA, enzyme linked immunosorbent assay, and DNA fingerprinting, and many more. And these molecular tools are used for rapid and accurate detection and identification of the pathogens. And second tool is data management, that is GIS, geographic information system, and global positioning system, that is GPS. And also remote sensing techniques are used in order to assess the plant disease. And also this data management, they are used to assist in disease control strategies as well. And there are tools like disease modeling and forecasting systems. These are used to predict the probability of the outbreaks. The visible wavelength photography, image analysis, laser induced fluorescence, radar, microwave techniques, thermography technique, nuclear magnetic resonance imaging, and multi or hyperspectral imagery. These are several modern tools to assess and detect the plant diseases. So in visible wavelength photography, the wavelength of the electromagnetic spectrum range from 1000 meter to 0.1 nanometer, and the longest wavelengths are radio waves followed by microwaves, near infrared and infrared. The visible wavelength, that is, ranges from 400 to 750 nanometer, and the shorter UV, X-rays, and finally the shortest wavelengths, that is gamma rays and high energy gamma rays, that rays. So in numerous studies, images of plant disease symptoms have been generated using the visible wavelengths of the light. So these visible wavelengths of light are recorded by camera or a flatbed scanner as a result of incoming electromagnetic radiations impinging on the leaf or other object, and some of it being reflected, which is the portion sensed by the camera, acting as a passive remote sensing device. So this visible wavelength photography combined with digital image analysis after visual assessment methods are probably the most widely used methods utilizing imaging technology to record, detect, and measure diseases on plants. Thus, digital cameras or flatbed scanners acquire an image of a diseased plant or a plant organ, and this image is digitized, whereupon it can be imported on a computer and subsequently analyzed using one of many available image analysis software programs. A laser induced fluorescence, chlorophyll fluorescence. So this differs from reflectance spectra of remote sensing and LIDAR, LIDAR, and this was proposed by Chappell et al. In order to monitor crop growth status, and related studies have demonstrated that various nutrient stresses can be obtained through chlorophyll content monitoring. So in addition, the chlorophyll, which is a typical fluorophore in leaves, where chlorophyll fluorescence is widely applied to detect photosynthetic activity of plants and monitor the effect of various nutrient stress on chlorophyll contents. So there are several VLS based VLs on reflectance spectra and fluorescence parameters based on fluorescence spectra, which have been designed to estimate valency in crops on a leaf or a canopy scale. Similarly, this laser induced fluorescence is widely used as a modern technique in order to detect and analyze the plant diseases. And coming to the radar based estimations used in assessment or detection of the plant diseases. So basically, when there is a lack of site specific weather information, this leads to a major limitation in application of decision which support system in plant disease management, because existing weather stations are too sparse to account for local viability. And this and also wide variety of fungal and bacterial plant pathogens are dispersed by rain splash or with wind driven aerosols. And also, in addition, rain provides high humidity for propagules, germination and infection, and consequently many plant disease epidemics are associated with periods of rainfall. This radar based precipitation have estimates have greater spatial coverage and resolution than gauge based point precipitation estimates. So therefore, radar estimated rainfall is more applicable than gauge based rainfall estimates for interpolation and regional risk assessment. So there are several types of radars, that is NEXRAD, next generation radar, also known as WSR 88D, that is weather surveillance radar 1988 Doppler, or simply Doppler radar, so named after CJ Doppler, the discoverer of the Doppler shift. So followed by NEXRAD, there is another radar named as XMRG, and there is a program also which is working that converts the XMRG files to ACSI. So there are several different types of radars used as a modern technique in assessment and detection and analysis of the plant diseases. And this thermography is another modern technique. So infrared thermography, that is IRT, or thermal imaging or the thermal video, these are examples of infrared imaging science. The thermographic cameras usually detect radiation in long infrared range of the electromagnetic spectrum, roughly 9,000 to 14,000 nanometers, or 9 to 14 micrometer. And these produce images of that radiation called thermograms. Since infrared radiation is emitted by all the objects with the temperature about absolute zero according to the black body radiation law, and thermography makes it possible to see one's environment with or without visible illumination. And the amount of radiation emitted by an object increases with the temperature, and therefore the thermography allows one to see variations in temperatures as well. So when viewed through a thermal imaging camera, warm objects stand out well against cooler backgrounds, humans and other warm-blooded animals becomes easily visible against the environment day or night, and as a result thermography is particularly useful for the military and other uses of surveillance of the camera. And in cases of plants, this thermography is also used for detecting the diseases on the leaf or any part of a infected plant part. NMR imaging and also multi-hyperspectral imagery play a major role in detecting and analyzing the plant diseases. So here you can see the images of visible wavelength photography of a grapefruit leaf with symptoms of citrus canker. So these are the symptoms of citrus canker. So in this photography, this is a hue image, this is a saturated image, and this is intensity planes, and this are seen used to segment and threshold areas of interest in images of leaves or plants to measure density, severity. So these are different imaging wavelength, visible wavelength photographs of a citrus canker infected leaf of a grapefruit. Here is another example of rose leaf which has been infected by Peronospora sparsa, and a symptom developed by downy mildew in early stages, that is during 5 to 7 days after inoculation, and of the disease of thermographic image. This is a thermographic imaging. Here you can't see the disease so clearly unless it is subjected for unless it is viewed under thermogram. So here you can see this patch is Peronospora sparsa patches, and this complete area is uh, development of again the same species in 7th day of inoculation. This is 5th day of inoculation, and here you can see various visible ranges starting from violet to red or pink. This is RGB image and this is thermogram image. This is how the infected plant parts appear depending upon the intensity or the density of the spores or infected area on that particular plant part. So this photograph is of this infected leaf observed under hyperspectral images technique. So this photograph is supervised classification, that is spectral angle mapper of Cercospora leaf spots on sugar beet. The green color denotes healthy leaf tissue, the yellow color border of Cercospora leaf spot, and the red color in the necrotic center of the Cercospora leaf spot. So you can see basically you can see 3 different colors. One is this green color, another is red at the center and bordered by yellow. Okay, so this green color is a healthy part of a leaf, and yellow color that is bordered, that is a yellow color the border of a Cercospora leaf spot, and the red color the necrotic center of the Cercospora leaf spot. So in this figure these are spikelets diseased by Fusarium head blight. This can be visualized by calculation of the normalized difference vegetation index. So under hyperspectral images, this disease plants appears to be like this. So these images can be visualized by calculation of the normalized difference vegetative index, and that is another term how to calculate the number of pathogens and how to analyze the severity of the pathogen. So there are several there are several again calculation methods and even softwares developed for this analysis of the plant diseases. So let us not much bothered about this. If possible, I'll come out with another video lesson by discussing various softwares and calculations and different mathematical tools also, which helps in detecting the plant diseases. But here just understand, so this is the image of the hyperspectra. This is leaf image caused by Cercospora leaf spot. So these images are a source from various papers from the journals. So in this photograph you can see the leaf affected by canker of grapefruit, showing thresholding of the diseased area, and by using the image analysis software program for plant disease management. So by using this software program, that is Assess version 2.0 has been used to assess the plant diseases. These are various mathematical modeling in plant disease epidemiology, that is various disease progress curves like monomolecular curve, exponential curve, logistic curve, and Gomperst curve. So this monomolecular is appropriate for modeling monocyclic epidemics, and it is also called as negative exponential model, and exponential disease progress curve is also known as logarithmic, geometric, or Malthusian model. So logistic curve are more appropriate for most polycyclic diseases, and this logistic curve disease progress curve is most widely used for describing the epidemics. And Gomperst, so this disease progress curve is appropriate for polycyclic diseases as an alternative to logistic tools. Gomperst model has an absolute rate curve that reaches a maximum more quickly and declines more gradually than the logistic models. And the second mathematic modeling models are linked differential equations, that is LDE, and another is area under disease progress curve, that is AUDPC. And this AUDPC generally used to make comparison between the treatments and also used to evaluate the resistance of plant species. And there are several software simulations of the software programs like Epidem, Mycos, Epimay, Epiven, Epimule, Epidemic, Plasmo, etc. Yeah, I was talking about several GIS and GPS modules. So GPS is Global Positioning System, and it is a satellite system that projects information to GPS receivers on the ground, enabling users to determine latitude and longitude coordinates. And GIS, Global Information System, is a software that enables users to store and manipulate large amount of data from GPS and other sources. These are various GPS and GIS models, and nowadays in smartphones and almost all the smartphones will be having GPS inbuilt, and most of the watches also you can see nowadays they are coming with the GPS inbuilt GPS, and these are commercially available GPS models tools. And examples of GPS and GIS are in agriculture. An agriculture producers may use an handheld GPS receiver to determine the latitude and longitude coordinates of a water source next to the field. And GIS, following a chemical spill maps obtaining from a GIS system, can reveal environmentally sensitive areas that should be protected during response and recovery phases. And this plant disease forecasting is another topic. Let me not deal in detail here. Hence, it is again a time consuming, and for which we need a separate class for that. So friends, just understand plant disease forecasting is utilized by the state departments and farmers for making the economic decisions for the better management of plant diseases at field levels. And the PDF, that is plant disease forecasting, involves various questions which are answered by the growers, and these questions include information about susceptibility of cultivars, weather forecasts, and existing disease symptoms. This PDF relies upon plant pathogen environment interaction studies to predict the PDE. So here the most important factor that is uncertain and crucial is the environment, as the cultivars and the pathogen existence stands stable. And there is another model, EPIPRE, that is epidemiology prediction and prevention system. So this is developed by Netherlands to forecast about the PDE of winter wheat against multiple pathogens. So all these observations are gathered in the data bank, that is farmers observations in field, PDE models, synoptic weather data, and farmers basic data and field. All these are feed in the data bank, and this data bank, based on the result of this data bank, several recommendations are made to the farmers. Either these do not treat or send more observations, and these are treated and there is no treatment also. So like this, several reports can be driven from this data bank. So this data bank is generated by several information given by farmers observations in the field, and based on the results of several PDE models, and also based on the synoptic weather data and farmers basic data on the field. So all these data are generate the data bank. So from this data bank, several recommendations are given to the farmers, whether they should treat or they should not given treatment to the crop plants, or do not treat or send more observations. So like this, based on this, the farmers are leaded or guided in order to manage the plant diseases. So that is sufficient for today's presentation. That is, in brief, I have tried to cover important and significant aspects of plant disease epidemiology, and I have also tried to discuss about various elements or responsible for the development of the plant diseases. I have concentrated on host factors, pathogen factors, and environmental factors, and also we have discussed about what are the conventional and modern tools to detect and analyze the plant diseases, and we have bit spoken about the weather forecasting, and also we have seen different various modern tool techniques, and I have tried to discuss very much in brief about the various modern tools used in detecting and analyzing of the plant diseases. So friends, this is all about the plant disease epidemiology, that is PDE, and hope to see you in the next class. So till then, please do take care.